Hey guys, Ahmed here. Welcome back for yet another breakdown from New Rockstars. We're going to be checking out today for The Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 4. We finally got the big old reveal we have all been waiting for. Who saved Grogu at the temple? Still plenty of questions remain, but the answers we got in this episode just hit me right in the feels, man. And the excitement and the adrenaline of it and my reaction, maybe it might not show. My joy was definitely there, but what this means is so much more powerful, I think. Just on a meta-contextual way. For Ahmed Best, for the fandom, and it's one of those things that really hit me more after the fact, once like the hype and the everything had kind of cooled down from being in the moment. It's a very reflective piece. I know we're watching a New Rockstars breakdown, but Heavy Spoilers put out a nice little video that really kind of encapsulates what that cameo really means and why it means so much. And I definitely recommend checking that out just for some funsies. Well, I wouldn't say it's a fun watch, but it is an emotional and a pretty powerful, solid breakdown of the scene and why it's so important for Star Wars, the fandom, and how we can move forward from here as well. Very, I think, empowering in a lot of ways for anybody that might be going through their own mental health struggles. So with that in mind, I'll put a link to that in the description of this video as well. I just really like that video. But let's go ahead and check out New Rockstars breakdown for this episode of Mando, man. If you're not following them, check them out. Link, as always, will be in the description of this as well for the original video, if you want to watch it, if you haven't already, without me talking over it and pausing and all that. But with that all said, let's go ahead and hop in.
Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Eric Voss, and this is a breakdown of The Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 4, Chapter 20, The Foundling, referring to Ragnar Vizsla, who at this point has got to be begging the Covert to find a new training spot because, good lord, just far
seriously.
Inside. We're also referring to the foundling Grogu, whose escape from the Jedi Temple was finally revealed, delivered by Jedi Master Kelleran Beck, played by Ahmed Best. Before playing Master Kelleran on the kids' game show, our man played Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah, man.
It's Ahmed who was found, and we who were found.
Dude, I was thinking about that after the fact, because there's a lot of different elements to this you can go into if you're trying to think about obviously there's Ragnar and there's Grogu when we're talking about foundlings, but there's also different connections you can make to that. And in a more meta-contextual way, you can make that connection to Ahmed being found once again in a different way, in a different light by the fandom, after everything that he's gone through, man. Like, I'm always a proponent of criticism and critique, but never taking any of that out or threatening or demeaning the actors themselves. You can critique a performance, you can not like a character, but like going after somebody and like actively threatening their lives, like being egregiously hateful, that is under no circumstances okay. And he suffered greatly due to that backlash that came out of that. It was a very passionate one, and we know the fandom, we know how people can be, and we've seen it. We've seen it as recently as in the past couple of years as well. And it's not specific to the Star Wars fandom. I think it's something that every fandom really deals with, but like it's just disgusting that where that separation just cannot be understood. And I'm just glad that at the end of the day, he got to come back and have such a prominent, powerful reemergence into all of this. Now, I haven't seen the game show. I don't even know if it's out. Honestly, after it was announced and we saw that trailer for it, I've never heard of it since then. So I don't know if it's still coming out, if it has come out, or anything of the sort. But I'm glad that this character that he got introduced to us in with that is being established into this, that carried over. Though it doesn't bode well for us knowing that Grogu still ends up being captured by somebody for whatever happens to Kelleran here in the future, but hopefully I would like for him to kind of exist still out there in some way, shape, or form, hopefully to have survived this. But this was such a powerful return. If you don't know Ahmed's story and what happened after the prequel trilogy and during the prequel trilogy, definitely I recommend looking into it, and his story is powerful, man. And Heavy Spoilers goes into detail about some elements of it. It's a really well thought out dive into it that honestly, like I could I could try to give you guys my spin on it, but I think that Paul did a really good job at kind of encapsulating all of my feelings on the matter as well. And it's one that's kind of hard to watch without tearing up, though. But with that all said, let's actually just continue this.
Let's break down this victorious episode scene by scene for the details you might have missed. And by the way, if you're going to WonderCon, New Rockstars is hosting a panel on Friday, March 24th at 2:30 p.m. We'd love to see you there. And subscribe to our new channel, The Deep Dive, and you can support our growing network with our Mando-inspired shirts at nerdriot.shop. If you grab one of these, you can write in a custom shout-out that we'll feature in our Wookiee Leaks after shows. Okay, this episode opens back on the covert of the Children of the Watch with the blast of this instrument. This deep bass horn feels like the start of the covert's morning of training, but also something perhaps done in an attempt to ward off predators. Good luck with that. We push in on the
I don't imagine it was diegetic.
And then from the water, the two places that their animal predators will attack them from. On this waterfront, we see the covert training.
I mean, like if you're talking about, and not purely, because obviously they're off the ground, but like noise is just a powerful attractor for predators, man, especially near or in water. Because we know with like sharks thrashing and anything is signaling for a weakened or fractured prey that they might be able to nip on. So like it's almost like they're just kind of like this giant like beacon to these predators in this waste of activity. So that's like, hey, there's stuff to eat over here. And as we learned later in this episode, this is not the first time a Mandalorian has been swept up by this creature. This thing has become notorious for kidnapping people from the covert, so...
The hand combat against each other and against dummies, fighting with staffs, scaling walls with wires, and shooting the water, which at first seems random, but if you think about it, they're actually doing this to ward off attacks from that giant dinosaur gator who...
I don't know about that. Somebody in the comments did make a very strong argument. Or not argument, there wasn't really an argument to be made, a point or clarification on shooting into the water. Like, when you don't have actual targets, sometimes people will fire around out into a distance, and that point will become the target. So, like, your goal is to get as close to that initial hit as possible. So there is an accuracy practice at play here. One thing I said in there was, like, I feel like with a scavenged, like as disparate and like reclusive as this covert has become, like I would be more concerned about conserving your ammunition. I use the term waste, and it was like, well, they're not. There was somebody who was like, it was like they're not wasting their ammo. They're honing in their accuracy. Well, if it all depends on how much of supply they have. Can they afford to be expending their lot? Because we do know that even blasters do have a finite reserve. The grenades, the missiles, and all that stuff. Like, that's the fact that there's not a lot of resources around for Mandalorians to keep up their specific weapon types is I'm just kind of like, there's probably another more efficient way that we could do this without burning through our resources. But that's just where I came from. But it is also a very valid method of practice when you don't have formal targets or anything like that, or a formal range for target practice. So wanted to bring that to the table. Thank you guys for that clarification, or that enlightenment rather.
Attack them last time. Again, it would just be easier to train in the cave, but the armor's like, no, I like to put my feet up. Take this roughhousing outside. We see pairing.
Dude, they trained in the cave, that cave would collapse so fast.
Fighting with vibro blades and flamethrowers, but Grogu, our little sensitive boy, a classic kid who probably prefer a Fisher-Price wishing well, here is playing with some crabs who crawl past him.
What the hell?
Squid Game, red light, green light. Mando tells him to put down the rocks, but Dad, they're not.
It's kind of messed up.
Shells. Grogu can see life in detail where others see
nothing.
nothing.
Funny.
As Din takes Grogu away, notice how all these rocks rise and scurry into the water.
Yeah, because they were very comfortable around him. Otherwise, they would have scurried when he showed up anyway. However, knowing Grogu's past, they probably should have, because if he found a way, I guarantee he would have tried to eat one of them.
Grogu shares a calmness with animals that others do not have.
Unless they are frog eggs.
The crates behind him as
Or
they train are
frogs.
stamped with a mythosaur symbol and some Mandoa letters. It's so hard to translate Mandoa, but I'm pretty sure this is F or N OC-G and then F or N OC-J. Grogu is paired up with Ragnar, that's a foundling who was baptized in chapter 17, played by Wesley Kimmel. Remember, in his baptism, he did not finish the creed. Could that be why he was cursed to be taken by the animals of this planet? Din
That's
says
a
that
good
Grogu
point.
needs to rise from foundling to apprentice. Apprentice. It's just interesting to see the parallels between the dogmatic order of the Mandalorians and the dogmatic Jedi order. Mandalorians too have a ranking hierarchy similar to the Jedi. Jedi ranking goes youngling, Padawan, apprentice, knight, consular, guardian, sentinel, and then master. Now,
I'm sorry, what? Has that changed? Hold up, I need to back it up. I'm sorry, Sentinel, Guardian, Consular are classes of Jedi Knights. You can also be any one of those as a master. Those are like, at least last time I checked, those weren't ranks. Those were like descriptors for the type of Jedi you were, and they were never really official. They were kind of from the expanded canon, from like the RPGs with KOTOR, SWOTOR, and even some of the other games as well kind of incorporated that language. But like they aren't like tiers. Like you could be a Jedi Knight and be a Consular. You can be a Jedi Knight and be a Guardian. You can be a Jedi Master and be a Guardian or a Sentinel or a Consular. It's really just a descriptor to define where your expertise lie.
now, during this sparring session in the background, the armorer and Paz Vizsla watch on. They take keen interest in Grogu. And Ragnar says that if Grogu is too young to speak the creed and get a helmet, he's too young to fight. But Din says one does not speak unless one knows. A line from the creed, which says a lot about why Din is a strong and silent type, but it also applies to the end of this episode. Bo-Katan speaks to the armorer, claiming to have seen the mythosaur, but the armorer doesn't refute her claims. She only talks past them, because one should only speak if they are speaking with absolute certainty. Bo-Katan says her dad was the same way as Din, making this the second reference to Bo-Katan and Satine's father, Duke Adonai Kryze, making me think we might see a flashback to the Kryze family when the girls were the ages of Anna and Elsa.
That would be cool.
Want to join the Death Watch?
Do you want to join a death cult? Oh my god. I know that's not what he said. I know he said Death Watch, but that was being a little more transparent. Anyway, God, that was great.
And plugs Ragnar 3 times with paint darts. And Din says he didn't teach him that, referring to Grogu learning all these jumps during his time with Luke Skywalker on the Book of Boba Fett. These flips are the kind of moves Yoda used when dueling Dooku in Attack of the Clones, and Insidious in Revenge of the Sith. Also the kind of moves we saw Yaddle do when she fought Dooku in Tales of the Jedi. But then a flying raptor snatches Ragnar.
I know a lot of people I don't know how many people notice or like whatever, but my Tales of the Jedi reactions are on the Real Rejects channel. Me and Greg watched those together, so I know they're not here. I did put a playlist up to make it easier, but if you haven't seen those, go check those out. That episode was phenomenal, man.
And Din and Paz and 2 others follow. I love how there's this jetpack mounted shot showing the jetpack in the foreground gassing out at the same time as the one behind him gasses out. Paz runs out too. I just appreciate that we get some limitations on the watch's flight capabilities. They're not able to fly and fly and fly forever like Iron Man with his perpetual arc reactor. Their packs would have a limited amount of fuel. Bo-Katan pilots are gone.
Just like they would have a limited amount of resources. As they were anyway.
After the raptor, and both are framed in the sun, low in the sky.
God, I love that shot
of the TIE fighters framed in the sun in The Force Awakens that I've always loved. Both are nods to the helicopters in the sun.
I need to see this movie. I've never seen it.
Bo-Katan returns from scouting to show a map of the raptor's nest, and Din says it flew a long way, which suggests that the raptor went beyond its normal hunting territory. Again, this cult seems cursed by the wildlife of this planet. Bo-Katan says these are no higher than the peaks at Kiramura. I used to climb them in basic training. A line that sounds a lot like Luke saying, I used to bullseye womp rats in my T-16 back home. They're not much bigger than 2 meters.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought.
Kiramura is a remote stronghold on Mandalore, home of the Skirata clan.
When with the way they said it too, it made me think of Kelleran from Witcher.
The Legends novel Republic Commando True Colors and its sequel Order 66. The armorer orders Paz to take the Shriekhawk training team. Shriekhawk is one of the sigils of House Vizsla and of the Death Watch. That's the 3-pronged scratch on the pauldron of the one who saved Din when he was a kid. Grogu watches watches them go and toddles after the armor. And the
I love his little waddle, man.
Better and better. As he enters the forge, we see it all from his lower point of view. He was there in chapter 17, but now Din is not with him. So rather than seeing this from Din's higher angle, it's from Grogu's angle. I
like that too, because as a contrast, especially to the concept art, like right at the tail end, with the shift of perspective towards him and the crabs, where it had him like kind of being like this massive kaiju rumbling through their little like scurrying grounds and stuff like that. And now the role is reversed, where he's the itty bitty one in this brand new world.
Moody, crust dissolving forge montage as the armorer lectures, just as we shape the steel, we shape ourselves. We all begin as raw ore. We refine ourselves through trials and adversity. During this, Grogu is superimposed over the Beskar ore as it's poured into the mold, as if to show Grogu himself being molded. Refine ourselves through trial and adversity might be why this cult continues to train in such a hostile environment. But this metaphor of seeing ourselves as metal comes from Plato's The Republic, the myth of the three metals, in which Plato posited that human beings were created with one of three metals in our souls: gold, silver, or iron or bronze, which defines the role the person should play in society. Gold for philosopher king, silver for warriors, bronze for craftsmen and farmers. The children of the Watch similarly liken themselves with Beskar, which they believe cast themselves as these dogmatic warriors. The armorer says the forging process reveals weaknesses, as Grogu is framed directly behind this hydraulic press so that it looks like he is the one being crushed over and over. The sparks of the press match cut with the sparks of the blowtorches as this door in the Jedi Temple is being cut open. And yes, we are back in Order 66. This forging process had the same exact effect on Din Djarin back in chapter 3 in season 1. It caused him to flashback to the day the Death Watch rescued him and discovered him as a foundling. The framing of the two flashback sequences is pretty parallel. Din's doors opening on a separatist droid, light coming in through the slit like the slit of his visor. That droid later killed by a Death Watch. For Grogu, it was the doors being pried open by the 501st Clone Troopers, followed by elevator doors opening
those
to
clones look
Jedi
so good.
Senior. But here, 4 Jedi defend Grogu from Clone Troopers of the 501st. They yell, "Get him to Kelleran!" So this tells us that during Grogu's time in the temple, he must have been known to several Jedi Masters, and that there was something of a plan in place to secure Grogu if something ever happened. Grogu's bassinet is the same one that he started the series in the pilot episode, but now it is clean and new, the same red and white colors of the Jedi temple walls surrounding them, not yet scuffed up. So this right now was not far from where Grogu was during his flashback in chapter 6 of the Book of Boba Fett. So this flashback is picking up right where we left off, and presumably there could be a next part flashback that picks up after Grogu and Kelleran blasted in hyperspace. Carl Weathers directed this episode, and he did an incredible job with the sequence, holding the tension on the elevator doors, and then whoosh, we open to Kelleran Beck, Ahmed Best, who played Jar Jar Binks in the prequels, and he played Jedi Master Kelleran Beck, host of the Jedi Temple Challenge Kids game show in 2020, which unfortunately got discontinued during COVID.
Okay, so it did come out. Okay. I didn't hear anything about it after it released. I remember when it was announced, but never after it was released.
In interviews, how he intentionally wanted to host that show not as himself, but as a Jedi character to help kids playing and watching suspend their disbelief.
Use the force of your core.
Now, Ahmed Best unfairly took some horrible abuse from the Jar Jar haters, so it just feels so great to have this.
I'm trying so hard not to cry right now, man. Cause I can't imagine. I've been at that point, that low in my life before, but I've never had those thoughts of myself in that way reinforced by external forces en masse in the way that he must have. I can't even like substantiate that, man.
This shot from Grogu's point of view so that it feels like we are being rescued by Ahmed Best and this show is rescuing him. I can't think of a more appropriate redemption for an actor who went through so much, and it just shows that Lucasfilm produces these shows with love. Also, in addition to Jar Jar Binks, Best played a Coruscant clubber, Ahmed Beck, in Attack of the Clones, and he has said that Kelleran Beck is related to that character, hinting that that game show was canon in the past. And now it confirms that Kelleran has an interesting gold stitching on his robes that was not on his robes in the game show. The gold plus the white inner layer of robes is closer to the Jedi wardrobe we saw in the High Republic era. Temple Archives librarian Jocasta Nu had similar embroidery on her garb. Kelleran picks up the blue light.
I always assumed, because I don't remember, again, because I never watched it, I always assumed that that game show took place during the High Republic, which is one of the reasons why I was really kind of surprised to see him here, because that just means that that show was going on while this was all going on. And one of the speculations I had made during that is knowing that the kids that he trains that passed these tests and trials were probably gunned down by the 501st. Oh my God.
Kelleran picks up the blue lightsaber of the Jedi who fell in the elevator and double fists on the clone troopers. These clone troopers call to each other.
This
Yeah,
choreography
they go back to where
is
Morrison
solid.
voiced these. I love how Ahmed Best plays this with such intensity. Like, he makes specific eye contact with each of the troopers.
I love that they gave him this moment too. Like, it could have been enough for them to just kind of like have him show up at the door and be like, oh, it's Ahmed. He takes Grogu and leaves, but to give him this powerful moment where he gets to pull out not one, but two lightsabers and just take these clones out, be this defender, the sabered hand as he is known, and just kind of like push through and have this moment. And it's just so good.
He engages and he emotes specific betrayal for each of them. He force pushes the clone trooper off the ledge from the hand that he's actively holding the blue lightsaber in. See, I do this when I have a Chipotle fountain soda and I try to pry open a few spare fingers to open my apartment door without spilling too much of the Coke on myself, so I'm a Jedi Master too. But thank goodness some of those clone troopers showed up when they did, because it was their speeder bike with that convenient jump seat that Kelleran and Grogu used to escape. As he zips away from the burning temple, there's a line of
such a
traffic
shot,
on the left side of
man.
the screen. At first I thought these ships might be leaving the temple and there might be other Jedi survivors out there, but really it looks like a distant line of traffic that's passing the temple in the background. Kelleran is pursued by an LAAT, a low altitude assault transport. That's the clone trooper gunship that we first saw attack the clones. And Kelleran steers into a train tunnel, just like the tunnel that we saw Pershing and Eli Kane riding through in chapter 19. Kelleran veers off into the station for
And there's that rock.
the same plaza that Pershing
the mountain
toured several decades in the future after this. This is the one that has the highest peak of Coruscant, Umate. And yes, again, this is the same place that Obi-Wan and Satine toured in Clone Wars. They end up crashing on a platform with a Naboo cruiser. This is an H-type Nubian yacht. Not exactly the same royal cruiser that Amidala used in Phantom Menace. This is more like the one she and Anakin used traveling to Tatooine and Geonosis and Attack of the Clones. So does this mean that Kelleran took Grogu to Naboo? Or that figures from Naboo, like Padme, or Sheev Palpatine, or Senator Binks, might have known about Grogu as well? Well, the guard who
It does
helps Kelleran
raise a
is
lot of
listed in the credits as
questions.
Senate guard captain, but they are wearing the same red padding as the Naboo Royal Security Forces from the prequels. So I'm wondering if these could be security detail of a senator from Naboo, like Senator Amidala or Senator Binks. So if Padme knew about Grogu, presumably Anakin would too, so I don't think it was Padme. Palpatine knew, there's no way he would.
Because it raises a question. If they were ready and waiting for this evacuation, Padme didn't yet know what was going on. No one really yet knew what was going on at this time during Order 66. I mean, they knew that the Jedi were trying to throw a coup or whatever, as the Emperor later declares, but in the moment, no one knew. So it does raise some questions about what was going on in this moment. So maybe as the call went out, maybe there was this contingency in play with a select few people, maybe specifically for Grogu, because he had an escort of a lot of Jedi. So maybe there was this like red alert program or alarm that went out that was like, we need to get this dude out of here. I don't know. I hope they expand upon that and explain it, because it does kind of raise a couple of questions. And maybe I'm thinking, there's something I'm not thinking about. So if you guys have your own little ideas of how that all kind of melds together, I would love to know.
Let the clone troopers kill such a valuable target, so Palpatine obviously didn't know. So Jar Jar is looking like the likeliest option here. Jar Jar.
Double Jar Jar. Jar Jar from the Senate saved Grogu, and Jar Jar's actor saved Grogu.
Really is the key to all
That's
of this.
hilarious.
With Ahmed
If
Best's
that
connection,
is
I think
true.
That's likely who it was. And you know what? I don't have a problem with that. But taking Grogu to Naboo right now would be incredibly dangerous. Though I guess it didn't stop Ahsoka Tano from visiting Bail Organa at Padme's funeral on Naboo in Tales of the Jedi. What was she thinking? Ultimately, Kelleran was just
That
a total
delivery.
surprise pick of who saved Grogu. So I'm guessing Grogu's next destination will be some new place we haven't heard of yet. Though I think whatever that path was might end up being the path that we saw in Obi-Wan Kenobi, where Jedi refugees were taken along.
That would be
Grogu was just
cool.
the first one to be taken along that path. Grogu looks up to see two V-wing starfighters roaring in. They have a similar howl of the later TIE fighters from Sinar systems that
Not
the
bad,
V-Wings
not
were
bad.
Republic era predecessors to, and Kelleran jumps to hyperspace, and the clangs of the armor hammering take Grogu back. So, back in chapter 17, when Grogu saw those Purgle in hyperspace, in that moment, he might have also been flashing back to his traumatic escape, which is why he snuggled up with Din Djarin right then. The armor completes the rondelle with the sigil of the Mudhorn that was...
What is a rondelle for? Like, what is its purpose? Maybe he will explain it literally after I unpause this, because I've seen them as like little items or whatever, little knickknacks across like, you know, Souls games and stuff like that, but it was never like a wearable. But like they're like, you'll grow into it. Like what? I don't know.
signet Din Djarin chose after Grogu saved him from one in chapter 2. Bo-Katan's rescue party
All
with
right,
the Shriekhawks are 7.
I could easily look it up, but engagement. Let me know.
In total.
What's a rondelle?
Besides Din is blue helmeted, meaning they're all from House Vizsla. The fact that it's 7 mirrors the 7 Samurai, or the Magnificent 7, which is based on the 7 Samurai. Under 2 crescent moons, they make camp, and Bo-Katan asks Din how to eat when others are around. The answer is apparently you just go be alone and you eat your shame in private. That's the way I gobble up my Chipotle alone in my car before I meet up with people. Paz says that Bo-Katan, as leader of this war
Qdoba's superior.
party, gets the honor of staying by the fire. And I guess the honor is being well lit enough so that Katie Sackhoff gets actual screen time this episode. But this is just some interesting rituals here. The leader needs to stay the warmest and the safest to keep the war party overall intact. Bo-Katan leads this war party because she, as she said, she's had experience climbing in Mandalore, and she's just the most experienced of this group because this covert otherwise has no really defined leadership other than the armorer being...
Feel free to lock me up in horny jail, man, but Katie Sackhoff has a walk that just does it, man.
Their high priestess. Paz warns that the raptor will likely kill the foundling if it is attacked. Like, he doesn't say it'll kill my son. He says the foundling, as in this is a youth who is a responsibility of the entire tribe. As they climb, the sound of their cables mixes in part of the sound of the lightsabers igniting. Yeah, you hear the burst release, but without the searing burn sound and the hum that follows it, rather the wobble of a metallic cable that follows it. Now, they climb up to the nest, where, horrifyingly, there is a Beskar helmet of one of the past kids the raptors snatched. And there are some buzzing insects around that dry grass, likely swarming some currently rotting flesh. Paz, Leroy...
Because you notice they do a heat scan and there's only one warm signature up there.
Jenkins is into the nest, where 3 giant infant raptors attack. The mama raptor coughs up Ragnar. One can only imagine what he went through, but we know Boba Fett's Mandalorian armor helped him survive inside the Sarlacc. Either way, Ragnar here is bone dry. Just a bit odd. The raptor takes off with both paws and Ragnar.
That was the biggest, like, suspension of disbelief issue that I had throughout this. One, the fact that he survived in that gullet all night long. Was it pre-chewed or anything like most mother birds would do in this situation as well? I know they're not birds, but still, they are bird-like. But a whole evening, like, passes.
Ragnar, and we know flying off until their jetpacks run out is its tactic, so there's a natural ticking clock to this chase. Bo-Katan gets swatted by a wing, and she loses one of her night owl pauldrons.
Yeah.
You do see it here, which the raptor, you could say, might have done her a favor. The animals of this planet, guided by simple nature, or guided by some spiritual force to get these cultists to where they need to be. While the others just piss off the raptor with their cables, only Bo-Katan sticks. She hooks it, sticks a vibroblade above the eye, and the raptor releases paws. It's Din who snares the wing, and immediately vibroblades to the talon before the raptor can wriggle free. Ragnar's loose, and Din scoops him up, and we hear a blast to the flute. So interesting to point out here, Bo-Katan goes for the giant eye to tame the beast, like her connection with the giant eye of the Mythosaur. Din Djarin saves the kid, like his connection with Grogu. The raptor flails in the water, and there's always a bigger fish. He gets snapped up by that same gator species as the one we saw in chapter 17, like the Mosasaur.
Yeah, I was about to say.
World. Now in chapter 17, that guy got blown up, but this one proves that the water is filled with these big boys. Paz adorably pulls his son in close, and Din, watching them upon return, immediately picks up Grogu. So seeing Paz fear for his son gave him his own fear for being apart from his little boy. They brought back the 3 raptor babies. No clue how they all fit on that ship without the raptors trying to eat them on the flight back, but this will provide some beastly flying mounts that this clan can ride, alongside Bo-Katan when she inevitably rides the Mythosaur. The armorer makes a new pauldron marked with the Mythosaur, and the armorer says that since the Mythosaur belongs to all Mandalorians, it's okay, but Bo-Katan seems a bit disappointed to hear this. She wants the Mythosaur for herself.
I don't agree with that. I didn't get that vibe at all. I didn't like the disappointment. I thought that was like the approval. I saw, like, aside from like one little musical cue, I still see all of this as Bo-Katan's personal spiritual reawakening. I don't see it as some malicious thing. Now, it very well could. I don't see it as anything of the sort. Like, I don't know where I personally, like, sure, everybody's got their read. Art is just that way. I don't see how we get that connection.
So she asks the armorer what if she actually saw a mythosaur, and the armorer answers only cryptically, when you choose to walk the way of the Mandalore, you will see many things, as if this was no more than a noble vision. But she doesn't explicitly deny what Bo-Katan saw was real either. So Bo-Katan's faith in partaking in this cult is transitioning from witnessing a miracle to joining in the day-to-day rituals and trials that truly test them. She is also a bit of a foundling that we are left with in this episode. But one final detail that you might have missed in the final frames: while it seems like Bo-Katan is staring at the mythosaur on the wall, the armorer steps into frame between them on the other side of that fire, watching Bo-Katan closely. I think a conflict may be brewing between Bo-Katan and the armorer.
Again, I don't see that at all. Like if we just go back to that shot, where yet? The armorer is not even looking at her, dude. Like, they aren't even making eye contact. The armorer is just looking into the forge. Like, the armorer's line of sight is nowhere near Bo-Katan. I mean, she is between her, like spatially in the mythosaur. Actually, she's not. I mean, she is, like, if we were like looking at the layout, but like as a like direct line, there's nothing between Bo and the mythosaur skull. I'm a little like taken aback by the reads on this last scene, to be honest.
I think conflicts may be brewing between Bo-Katan and the armorer. Reminder to subscribe to our new channel, The Deep Dive.
Guys, what did you think? What are your theories on that last scene? How did you all react when Ahmed showed up as Kelleran Beck? Did you even know who Kelleran Beck was when he showed up? Yeah, man, sound off. Let me know what a round is, what it is for. Is there any details that you guys missed that they did not include in here as well? Sound off the comments. Let me know your thoughts down below. We'll carry on the conversation after the video. Remember, check out my reactions if you have not seen them already. Check out the video from Heavy Spoilers I included if you want a nice little, like, heartfelt dive into what has happened with Ahmed and why this return is so powerful. And, of course, new Rockstars for this beautiful breakdown. But, guys, that's it for now. Before we go, I want to shout out our channel legends: Manny Sherritt, Ryan Karen, Jason Coleman, Philly Vane, Yorick, Corey Scott, Margaret Grace, Melita, Robert Anguiano, Raven McGann, Jeffrey Hale, M. Sephiroth, Jake Cantrell, Josh Lee, and Aaron Myers. Thank you guys so much for your continued support and everybody who's been making the channel what it is today. Love you guys. That's it for this video, and I'll see you guys next week with the next one. In the meantime, may the Force be with you always. Take care, everybody.